Yes, maybe a sparkling water. Please. Yes. Thank you. Welcome back. You've been missed. Mm-hmm. Two minutes. Plug that baby in. And rebooted. Pamplemousse is grapefruit, huh? I didn't know that. Ten seconds. Are you going to take us live? All right, I'll do it. And we're live.
We're live?
Yes.
Uh-oh. I'm not ready.
Okay.
The iPad's not coming up.
Let me get that Discord volume turned down.
All right. I'm going to mute Discord so I don't listen to you.
Yes, Michael, you should hear something.
Yeah. So it looks like we're both talking to me.
I think the chat room can hear us.
All right. Well, if Mike can't hear us, are we really talking if Mike can't hear us? I don't know what the rules are. Okay. If Sandy hears us, I think that counts. All right. So Kevin is going to be late, did you say?
Yeah. So, Alan, until Kevin arrives, you are authorized for chapter mark reminders.
All right. But when he gets here, you have to hand over the reins, right?
You hand over the mantle to the wingman.
Now, here's an important question, though. Does he also do roll call? I think he's got to do both, right?
He always has roll call.
All right, Alan, give us a roll call. I'll start without you if you don't.
You got to be on top of things. All right,
I'm starting. Alan, Jason, Frank, Jill, John, Mike, Sandy. Oh, there's roll call. Sandy, Michael, and I saw Wheels sneaking in there in the sidebar. Who else we got? Anybody else in the sidebar there? I said Mike and John. I think looks like that's it. Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
All right. Oh, trying it in YouTube for the first time. So you're not at podfeet.com. You're at regular YouTube. That's interesting. Okay. Well, I think I should kick in because I'm going to do a lot of reading here.
Let me test this. Okay. I don't see the field where you normally type in chapters, but I guess it's just because you haven't entered any. It's blank.
Yeah, it's actually what you're used to seeing is you're used to seeing it a little more like this.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so now I can't see the tracks quite as easily, but that's okay.
But you do this for the NosillaCast toys.
I can shrink them. That's what I was looking for last week.
Uh-huh.
Look at this. Whee! So what I want to be able to do is go like that, and then I can give more space up here for chapter marks.
There you go.
Exactly. Except there's always this big empty space here, and I can't do it. It's where the chapter art is supposed to go, and I'm not doing chapter art. Don't start with me, okay?
Chapter art.
No. All right.
You ready to kick in?
I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to mute you and get started here.
Okay.
Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, May 30th, 2021, and this is show number 838. Well, we got a big show today, got a lot of stuff going on, so we should probably just get stuck in right away. And I did that long enough because it looks... Elliot's here. Hi, Elliot. How exciting. All right, chapter mark. Why didn't I hear it? Because I wasn't in the right place. Try it again. Hang on. I'm not hearing anything. No chapters to find. What did I do wrong? Okay, something's funny. My sound output got muted. That was weird. All right, let's try this again. Okay, pressed on all the buttons. It brought that up in front. Copy link. Uh-oh. Danger. Whatever I'm doing. Oh. The keystroke I'm doing is muting my output. That is really weird. So what's going on? Keyboard Maestro. Did I disable it in some way? Quit it? What did I do? Yeah, something's fiddly. What a shock. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to put this in front, so I should see it jump in front if it's running properly. All my keys and H. And it did put it in front. Copy link. I'm not hearing the beep, and I'm not getting... What is going on? All of my... It's like my keystrokes have gotten messed up. Yeah, I'm getting no sounds, and right when I do the copy, it's muting my audio out to my headphones. I can unmute you, Steve, in case you want to participate, but I've got my macro here that does say Control Option Shift Command H is what I'm supposed to be hitting.
Is there a way to quit Keyboard Maestro and restart it? I don't use it, so I'm not.
Yeah, but I think but I just used it to launch the live show, and that worked. What on earth is going on?
So the only other thing you've done differently is you shrunk the window or played with the window size on Hindenburg. I don't know. That shouldn't have made a difference.
That's a good guess, but okay, when I hit it, that's the keystroke. It's popping it out in front. I'm hitting copy link. And I'm definitely not hearing anything. And right now I'm not muted. I hit copy again. And it just unmuted. That is really weird. It's unmuting Discord. Wow. You can see if there are macros stuck running. How would I do that, Mike? This is really weird. This is just like doing... Maybe it's because Mike wasn't here, or Kevin wasn't here. Does the macro assumes fields are in certain places? No, I don't think it does. Huh. Well, I may have to play around with this on the side. I'm going to do it just in case, I'm going to copy link here and do it the hard way. See if I can remember how to do it. What is it? Command Enter? Command Enter? No. Command Shift Enter? There it is. Okay. That. And that. And then I gotta go back. I gotta grab this title. Copy link. Ugh. Ugh. I hate that. I wonder what the Hindenburg's doing something funny. But the weird thing is it's changing muting. Steve, if you talk right now, I think I'll hear you twice. Talk to me.
Do you hear me twice?
I do.
So it's unmuting, the keystroke you're hitting is unmuting Discord?
Well, it unmuted Discord the third time. It muted my headphones the first two times. Yeah, you forget the old manual way. Okay. All right. I'm going to just have to keep going here. That is disturbing at best. Let me bring up where are you? What I got to read here? Chit chat. All right. Here we go. Well, this week's Chit Chat Across the Pond is an installment of Programming by Stealth. And in this episode, Bart teaches us how to use GitHub as a public repository for our code, or for, anything we write for that matter. He reviews why he chose GitHub, and then we dig right in. He does explain the benefits of using SSH to access GitHub instead of HTTPS, and if you haven't set up SSH keys before, or you're rusty on the topic, he includes links to our sibling show, Taming the Terminal, where you can learn how to do it. In this episode, we create a new repo from scratch in GitHub on the web with a README file and a license, and then we get to use a command line version of GitHub called GH. With GH, we pull the repo down from GitHub, we edit the files, we commit them locally, and push them back up to GitHub, all from the command line. We then flip the tables and from the command line create another repo directly on GitHub. Again, locally on our local machine, we're using the terminal, only stuff's happening up on GitHub. It's really cool. We create some files, we set them up to track, and we push and pull again to prove the whole thing's working. It's surprisingly easy and simple. Now, Bart's teasing us with the next episode where we're going to learn how to create a website using GitHub Pages, which will give us a nice place to host our web apps for free. You can follow along with Bart's fabulous show notes, of course, at pbs.bartificer.net, and you can subscribe to this podcast by looking for Programming by Stealth in your podcatcher of choice.
So Kevin
you can
made
have a free website. Save and add chapter marks.
All right. You may have missed
Alan
it, Kevin.
was standing by.
Alan was standing by, and Allison had a little issue with her automation for adding chapter marks.
Yeah. Well, Kevin wasn't here, so maybe that's the problem.
Could be. Let's see. Maybe it'll work now. Give it another try.
Copy link. And copy. and it flips over and it just muted.
No,
that time it muted.
But it did.
It
did
muted
a copy
Mimo
and
Live.
paste. But
What's that?
It did a copy paste into your.
But it put it in the wrong place. Oh no, it wrote over the other one.
Can you do a Control Z on that?
Yeah. Control Z. What kind of Windows user are you?
All right, Command Z.
I thought Jill was a good sport, letting me color her a recovering Windows user. Oh, no, I can't. That's right. I can't use that. Okay, go back over here. Copy link. I wonder whether they changed something in Hindenburg that's causing this problem.
Could be.
That could be it. Rub my freshly cut hair for good luck. Okay, what was I doing next? I was gonna record. That's right.
Knit like a programmer.
I get distracted easily when things don't work.
Nice haircut,
Knit like
Kevin.
Oh wow, you are shaven and shorn. I wrote this one weeks ago. I've been saving it. All right, this can be a long one, so settle in, kids.
Buckle in.
And enjoy. Talk to each other. Have fun. Muting Steve. After I originally wrote up this article I'm going to talk to you about, I realized I may have come up with a subject that interests absolutely no one but me. You see, this is about knitting like a programmer. How many of you listening both program and knit? Well, I mentioned this problem to Bart, and he explained that there's a long history of the intersection of programming and textiles. Bart went on to explain that programming punch cards have their origins in weaving. He pointed me to a Wikipedia article about the jacquard machine, which was designed to program a loom to automate the process of weaving. From the Wikipedia article, it says, the machine was controlled by a chain of cards, a number of punched cards laced together into a continuous sequence. Multiple rows of holes were punched on each card, with one complete card corresponding to one row of the design. So I don't know, maybe this intersection of programming and knitting will be of some interest after all. Well, I've been programming for a few years now, but I've been knitting since I was very young. I actually taught myself to knit when I was around 9 years old, learning from a magazine or a book, as I recall. I can distinctly remember learning the stockinette stitch at the kitchen table and being so frustrated until I figured out that the dumb instructions did not tell you to move the yarn from the back to the front as you switch from knit to purl and back again. Once I figured that out, it was smooth sailing. Now, I haven't knit for a very long time, keeping my fingers busy with crocheting and cross-stitching for at least the last 25 years. But my daughter-in-law Nikki chose a knitted pattern for the baby blanket I'm making for my future grandson. It was time to get back in the game. Now, execution of some knitting patterns wouldn't benefit from thinking like a programmer, but the particular pattern I'm working on just cries out for it. Knitting patterns, and crochet patterns for that matter, will give you row-by-row instructions, but whenever a complex bit is repeated, they'll often throw in an asterisk on either side of the instructions and say, repeat from star to star. In programming, if you're going to repeat something, you make it a function so that you can repeat it predictably. Already we can see that knitting and programming have something in common. The problem I was trying to solve was that this pattern was written in a very complicated way. This resulted in constant mistakes on my part until I started to break down the pattern in a different way. If you look at the book of the photo on the cover of the instructions, you see an alternating pattern of big square blocks. Every other big square block is either checked or striped. That's what they call it. And there are 4 big rows of blocks. So the instructions call these big rows of blocks sets. So on the first set, it's blocks of check, then stripe, then check, then stripe. But on set 2, I should say, I've stumbled too much here. Pattern in a different way. If you look at the photo on the cover of the instructions, you see an alternating pattern of big square blocks. Every other big square block is either called checked or striped, and there are 4 rows of big blocks, so you can have 16 big blocks. The instructions call these rows of blocks sets. On the first set, it's blocks of check, then stripe, then check, then stripe, and on set 2, it's stripe, check, stripe, check. The photo is critical to figuring out this pattern because down in the weeds of the instructions, it's very difficult to see this big picture view that I've just described. The pattern describes the sets in a very complex way. Let's say you're on row 26. Row 26 is not explicitly explained. It says that row 26 is row 21 in the check pattern. Okay, what's row 21? Well, row 21 is a repeat of row 1 in the check pattern. I'm not making this up. So you basically have to do like a lookup table. And I created 2 lookup tables, but it was like doing 2 coordinate transformations in your head. I tore out many rows many times. That's when I tried to start thinking of it as functions, and it became much clearer to me. Let's think of the check and stripe blocks as functions, because inside each of those blocks, we have a set of instructions. We're going to call them stripe block and check block. So we have function stripe block, do stripe type stuff. And then function check block will be do check type stuff. Now let's dig down inside these 2 functions. The instructions for the stripe block function define explicitly what to do on rows 1 through 8. All of the even rows, so 2, 4, 6, and 8, are a simple purl stitch all the way across. So we could think of the purl rows, the even ones, as their own function, which we'll simply call purl. Rows 1 and 5 are a simple knit stitch, so we'll define a knit function for those rows. That leaves rows 3 and 7 for the interesting functions. Both rows 3 and 7 are what create the look of the stripe pattern. It's what I'd call like a bumpy looking row created by alternating knit and purl. But to make it a little more interesting, rows 3 and 7 are offset from each other so the bumps don't line up. For that reason, we have to define 2 functions, which we'll call stripe 3 and stripe 7 to correspond to those 2 rows. In the stripe 3, we're going to knit 2, but then 15 times we purl 1, knit 1. Well, that sure sounds like a loop in programming to me. The stripe 7 function is just slightly different so that we get the offset I was talking about. Instead of starting with knit 2, it starts with knit 1 and it ends with an extra knit 1 at the end, but it has that same loop inside where you repeat 15 times. If I was refactoring this to clean it up, I'd probably define our little loop of P1, K1 15 times as yet another function. Now, the reason it's helpful to think of this knitting pattern as the series of functions is that this group of 8 rows gets repeated 5 times, so that's a total of 40 rows in one stripe block. So I've actually written out all these little pseudo functions that I'm describing in the show notes if you really want to go through and look at them. Now, this would be a great stopping point if the check block repeated at the same rate internally as the stripe block. But no, the inventor of this pattern made them repeat at different rates. So remember, the stripe block functions through its cycle every 8 rows. So you do 1 through 8, you do 1 through 8, you do 1 through 8, you do that until you get to 40 rows. But the check block cycles every 20 rows. So this wouldn't be so bad if the 2 blocks were independent, I should say, but they're not. Remember, we're going across, we're making a stripe, part of a stripe block, a row and a stripe block, and then we do a check block, and then a stripe block, and then a check block. So that means that at 8 rows, we have to start a repeat over again for the stripe block, but we don't yet change the check blocks. At rows 20, though, the check blocks start their repeat, but the stripe blocks are not changing on the row 20. It's really, really, really hard to keep track of this. Now, I know you're really hoping I'll go through the pseudocode for the check blocks, but out of brevity, I just put it in the show notes. Now, understanding this pattern at this fundamental level was critical to being able to even tell if I'd messed up, but it doesn't actually help me knit each row. I can't run these functions. I still have to create every single stitch one at a time. I pulled out one of my favorite tools when working on crafts, Notability. I wrote out all 40 rows of this first set by hand using the Apple Pencil on my iPad Pro. I wrote the stripe instructions in green for each row and the check instructions in red. That's like syntax highlighting, right? That turned out to be invaluable in figuring out where I was. Since I'd figured out the pattern in a programming way, once I had 20 row numbers written out, I could copy and paste between the rows to reduce errors. For example, in the check block, rows 1, 3, 11, and 13 are the same, so I could write it out just once, copy and paste it 3 times. Once I had the 40 rows written out for the first set of 4 blocks, I could finally start knitting the pattern predictably. I sit in my easy chair with my iPad Pro in the Magic Keyboard as a stand. I open a Notability while I knit, and I use the Apple Pencil to check off each row. On a few occasions, I've been knitting in the car, and the iPhone is a more practical tool for that environment. Well, Notability works on both platforms and on the Mac and syncs notes perfectly between these devices. I can zoom way up on Notability on the iPhone and use my big fat fingers to make my little check marks in color, and it works surprisingly well. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not still making mistakes with this process, but I have a much better feel for the pattern with the process I just followed. After I finished the first 40 rows, I got to start set 2. So set 1 was stripe, check, stripe, check. Set 2 is check, stripe, check, stripe. You would think that I could just grab the blocks and swap them, but I can't. I still had to write out every single row by hand again because of that darn cycling 8 rows versus cycling by 20 rows. I was able to do a fair amount of copy and paste, but I couldn't just pick up the blocks and switch them. That didn't work. Well, the bottom line is that it baffles me how normal people knit. This pattern is rated easy, and yet I find it very complicated. My suspicion is that the difficulty rating is weighted more heavily by the difficulty of the stitches themselves rather than the entire pattern as a whole. This really only has knit and purl in it. There's no cable stitches, no ribbing, no stockinette, so I'm thinking that's why they think it's easy. I'm having great fun making the blanket, and while the journey in this kind of craft is half the enjoyment, I can't wait to wrap it around my new grandson when he makes his final arrival.
Well, isn't that special?
All right, was that fun for anybody?
Frank,
maybe the picture with the cat?
Frank thinks he stumbled on knitting this week.
This week in knitting?
Yes.
All right. Boy, you guys were chatty. 92 comments. I bet none of them are about knitting. All right. Chapter mark? I'll go do it by hand.
Let's try this.
I'm already in the second block. So that's
wait,
very
I thought
exciting.
the last time it worked, but just misplaced by a row.
Yeah, but I'm not going to risk it screwing it up again.
Can't you? So isn't it that you just hadn't created the new row to paste it in?
Oh my God, you don't think that's what I forgot to be doing?
Try it. Try it.
No, I think I might have forgotten to make a chapter mark first. Good.
Give it a try.
Good. I like it when it's operator trouble. Let's see. Didn't hear it. Nothing. No, there it went.
It went.
But I didn't
hear it. Do you have your
because
system
it
sounds
keeps
turned
muting. Off? That is so bizarre. It keeps muting my headphones. That is the weirdest thing. Let me make myself a note. I probably wrote some other macro somewhere, but at least it's doing the work. Mute headphones on chapter mark. Doesn't want me to hear it. But it leaves them muted. Is it like if it unmuted afterwards? Well, at least the macro's running. That's good. That is such a bizarre failure.
Weird.
Yes. Oh, I like it when it's operating malfunction. That's so much better than fixing code and stuff. Okay, so this is actually going to be Wally Cherwinski. I almost said Wally Sonata, Steve. Remember Wally Sonata?
That's going back in time.
Yeah, he was my office mate in the early 1980s. He's a real smart guy. My master's project is a subroutine of his doctoral dissertation. All right. H for headphones and Hindenburg. Yeah, it's starting to sound like it, isn't it? All right, let me see if Wally introduces himself.
A while back, I got together with our good friend Bart Bouchot.
Okay, he did not, so let me move this out of the way. Has Wally ever done a review before? Oh, Wally's not here, Alan. He's just talking.
I'm sure he's done a review, but I don't know if he's done one for the NosillaCast.
Yeah. We now have a fabulous review by Wally Cherwinski. And I think this has some noise in it. I'm going to... Phooey. Phooey, phooey, phooey. Why does it do that? Jump to the end of the line. I didn't want it to do that. There we go. I'm going to get rid of that noise at the front end. Make that be a little quick. Let's hear how that sounds. Makes his final arrival. We now have a fabulous review. A little bit too. We now have a fabulous review by Wally Cherwinski.
A while back, I got together with our good friend Bart Busschots on his Let's Talk Photography podcast. And one of the things we talked about was how hard it is to get good shots of places or tourist attractions when there are always crowds of people around. Well, soon after that, Allison sent me a note and she said, "Hey, did you know that the Affinity Photo app has a great feature that lets you remove people and moving objects from photos?"
All right, I'm not going to let you hear the whole thing because I have to keep going. All right, I'm going to say some stuff here. Ooh.
Might miss otherwise.
Actually, there is definitely a hum on that. I do noise reduction. And I think you have to do it while it's playing.
You're into photography, it may easily become your daily driver. Plus, the new Monuments mode is a fantastic bonus feature that you can use to capture special shots that you might miss otherwise.
Wow. You cannot listen to this, Steve. Right. Could you hear the humming before?
Nope.
Oh, you couldn't? All right. Well, I start right here. So I'm going to leave that sound thing in there. God, that's so good. All right, here we go. Select all macros, sort by trigger, the middle window. Okay, I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to bring this up. So you said choose all macros, and then there's a sort. Sort by the trigger in the middle window. Okay. Nope. But I wonder if a subset of those keys could cause it. But there's nothing with H in it, right? You guys can see that, right?
Yeah, they can. If they're watching YouTube.
Really, I couldn't have caused that in Text Expander, could I? Because I automate a lot of stuff there. Yeah, I didn't know it could do that. All right. Well, I'm going to keep going here. Let's see.
That you might miss otherwise.
Well, that was fantastic, Wally. That definitely cost me whatever it was, $7 or $8, because as soon as I heard your review and looked at the app, I knew I had to have it. And it is so much more than just what Wally has described. This is a pretty capable photo editor, and it supports Apple Pro RAW. It's got, it's a full-on camera app, and I know a lot of people have talked about Camera Plus for a long time, but it's really, really capable. So I'm going to be digging into it and learning a lot more about Camera Plus 2. Okay, high dynamic range. Yep. All right. Chapter mark. All right, now I get to make fun of Jill. Let's see. I'm supposed to put the chapter mark in first, huh? There we go. And then I'll go back and unmute. So it does it after, so I do copy link, and then I hit Command C, and as soon as it flips over to the other, it didn't mute anything that time.
I think it overwrote your previous chapter.
Did it? Shoot, it did. What is going on? Yeah, you're right. Wait a minute.
You went too far.
Hang on. Redo Command Y. Okay.
There you go.
Oh, you know what? I bet I put the wrong kind of marker in. There. Okay. And I'll copy link. And I'll copy.
No,
okay.
It's going back.
That is weird. It just deleted the marker. Okay, I'm not causing that.
So that's Hindenburg changing? Or
What do you mean Hindenburg? It undid. Yeah, it deleted the chapter mark I created and then wrote over the old one. That is really scary. That is okay. I'm not going to test it anymore tonight. I will work on that later. All right. So I think I'll copy link and I will paste it right here. And I will copy and I will paste. That's a feature.
Yeah, right.
I got to go check the notes, and knowing Mike, there's a little Easter egg in there for me. So this is Dumb Question Corner. Oh, we get the Dumb Question Corner music.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have any Lindsay. She's got her best woman in for the weekend. Where's the Dumb Question Corner music? Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Whew, that was close. Put that here. 2.
Dumb.
Let's see. I'm going to be digging into it and learning a lot more about Camera Plus 2.
Dumb. That's the right track?
Dumb.
Dumb question.
What do you mean?
I don't know. It's spaced down, I guess, to make room for the track above.
It's down there because I've got a filter running on the second one on Wally's recording.
Got it.
Plus, it's called ambiance. All right, I'm going to start right here.
Dumb question.
How come I always have to?
It's time for Dumb Question Corner.
Well, Joe from the North Woods asks our next dumb question for this week. She says, are Macs like Windows in that desktops are for heavy-duty work? Hang on. This is not the new version. This is not the version that makes fun of her. I need to update because I updated this after it was up online.
Well, we couldn't have one that didn't make fun of her.
Yeah, I might have edited some other stuff too, so.
Uh-oh.
Well, I clean things up a little bit. Let's see. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Now it's got the joke in it. That's the right one. All right. Muting Steve. Well, Joe from the North Woods, who is a recovering Windows user, asks our dumb question this week. She says, are Macs like Windows in that desktops are for heavy-duty work and laptops are portable but typically less capable? And are all-in-one computers for lightweight users? It seems as I look at it, the Macs are all the same, but what differs is if it has a built-in monitor, battery, more ports. If I wanted to buy a Mac to run Windows, do I lose or gain anything by picking a MacBook Pro, a MacBook Air, a Mac Mini, or an iMac, other than attached hardware like monitors, ports, and battery? Well, I love this question because my answer can do nothing but generate emails to me that start with, well, actually, Allison. You would think that this question would have a provably correct answer. While there are facts that can be proven, it's a conclusion that's difficult to exactly quantify, but that will certainly not keep me from trying. I think the context for the answer is important. Let's look first at how I would have answered this question in the Intel days before Apple introduced the M1 Macs. In the most recent Intel days, we had 4 types of Mac computers: Mac Pro, Mac Mini, iMac, and the suite of MacBooks, the MacBook, MacBook Air, and MacBook Pro. If we define heavy-duty work machine as the one which will allow the user to replace and add high-end processors, memory, graphics cards, and disk, then the Intel Mac Pro is definitely the winner to that question. The Mac Pro can currently support 1.5 terabytes of RAM, 4 GPUs, 8 terabyte SSD, up to 12 4K displays, and up to 28 core Intel Xeon processors. We're not just talking about selling a kidney to buy this one. You'd have to sell off at least 2 of your children to be able to afford it. If you compare any Mac laptop or iMac all-in-one to this top-end maxed-out computer, then the answer to your question of whether desktops are for heavy-duty work and laptops are less capable, then the answer would be clearly yes. Okay, but let's get real. Let's change these constraints. First, let's assume that you didn't mean to compare a $52,000 computer to a laptop. Yes, $52,000, that's what it costs fully loaded as I described it. At its lowest configuration level, the Mac Pro starts at a whopping $5,000, which is out of range for most people if they aren't employed by Pixar. So that narrows the conversation down to the Mac Mini, iMac, and the suite of MacBooks. Things get a bit muddier when you ask about heavy-duty work versus portability once you eliminate the Mac Pro. If you're a professional photographer shooting 60-gigabyte raw photos out in the field, the workhorse you need can't be a desktop device. It must be a notebook. The MacBook Pro was designed for the heavy-duty user who, by design, requires portability. The MacBook Pro line is bifurcated. The 13-inch is more portable, but less capable than the 16-inch. Apple designed the 16-inch to allow up to an 8TB SSD, 64 GB of RAM, an 8-core Intel i9, and high-end graphics processor options. It's a bargain when spec'd out at this level. It's only $6,500. The Intel 13-inch MacBook Pro is limited to a 4GB SSD, half the RAM at 32GB, and half the processor cores with a max 4-core i7, and it can't take an i9. So it's not just the extra 3 inches of screen space that makes the 16-inch MacBook Pro the top of the line. I have a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I seriously dislike the weight and footprint of that device. And I wish I could have gone smaller in size, but I needed the high-end specs for the audio and video work that I do. Now, I would contend that the 16-inch MacBook Pro is for heavy-duty work, in spite of its being portable. The iMac was bifurcated in the same way as the MacBook Pro line, with a Pro model of its own. That Pro model was not only souped up, the thermal system was redesigned to allow for more efficient and thus quieter fans. The Pro line was completely discontinued this year, so we probably don't even need to go further down this product line for now. Now, the Mac Mini was neglected for ages and ages, but 2 years before the M1 Macs were announced, Apple dramatically improved them to be quite capable little workhorses. You could put a 6-core Intel i7 in them with 64GB of RAM and a 2TB SSD. These were something along the lines of the 13-inch MacBook Pro when fully loaded, and if you had your own keyboard and display, they were quite affordable. Many companies also use them as little compute servers in a rack. If companies are using them as compute servers, I kind of think that makes them qualify as workhorse machines, doesn't it? Well, I spent all that time telling you about the past, and the M1 changes absolutely everything about this conversation. Apple chose to put the exact same processor with the exact same RAM in the diminutive, I have trouble with that word, I don't know why, I always put it in places. They put the exact same RAM in the diminutive MacBook Air, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, the Mac Mini, and the new 24-inch iMac. All 4 of these machines are nearly identical in performance with some very slight subtleties. All 4 of these machines blow just about every other PC and Mac out of the water in single-core performance. They're no slouch in multi-core performance either. In single-core performance, the 13-inch MacBook Pro beats all of the previous Apple computers by more than 50% in Geekbench stores. Geekbench scores, including the $6,000 entry-level Mac Pro with Intel Xeons. In multi-core performance, it beats all but the Mac Pro, including the top-of-the-line Intel i9 16-inch MacBook Pro. All models of M1 Macs top out at 16 gigabytes of RAM, but the new design is so darn efficient and the SSDs are so wicked fast that even swapping to disk is barely noticeable. So now you're faced with the question of what is a workhorse? The MacBook Air doesn't have a fan, which is absolutely glorious. The 13-inch MacBook Pro does have a fan, and that's the subtlety in performance I mentioned. Because it has a fan, the M1 processor can clock up faster and be kept cooler than the MacBook Air, giving it a slight edge in performance. So I'd have to say that the 13-inch MacBook Pro is a workhorse, for now. Now, it's highly rumored that at WWDC in a week, we'll be seeing the true Pro models of Apple computers announced. For example, these true workhorse machines are expected to have additional Thunderbolt controllers. The current lineup of M1 machines only has 2 Thunderbolt ports, which most Pro users find overly restrictive. I use all 4 of mine on my 16-inch MacBook Pro whenever I work away from my dock, so the current models would meet my audio and video needs. The new models are also expected to support more RAM, and it will be interesting to see if they're better performers in multi-core work. 24 inches in an iMac is considered low-end, so the 27-inch iMac is expected to be included in this new lineup, along with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which did not get an M1 in the previous announcement. There's also a strong rumor that there will be a 14-inch MacBook Pro announced as a higher-end model. I'm personally very interested in a workhorse machine, and while the 16-inch Intel is a beast, it also weighs around 12,468 pounds, and it's giant. I'm talking 2 hands to pick the darn thing up. If like the current M1 models, we don't sacrifice performance for notebook size, I might downsize to 14-inch from 16-inch, assuming the size rumors are true. So with M1, you pretty much don't have workhorses versus low-end laptops. They're all the same at this instant in time. We'll find out in a week whether that will change when the high-end machines are updated, but I'm guessing that with the exception of the Mac Pro, you'll choose your form factor and then be able to choose workhorse or not within that form factor. But guess what? Everything I've written here does not answer your final question. You asked, if I wanted to buy a Mac to run Windows, do I lose or gain anything by picking MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, Mac Mini, or iMac? The M1 processor in the newer models is an ARM architecture processor. The Windows you're used to running runs on Intel processors, not on ARM. There is a version called Windows for ARM, but it's not available for end users, or at least not yet. For now, there are some janky ways to get it to sort of work, but it sure doesn't seem like the path you'd really want to follow for day-to-day use. There's a very good article at Macworld that I've linked to in the show notes that walks through the problems and how to sort of get around them using Parallels Desktop, but it's pretty squirrely. It seems inevitable to me that Microsoft will eventually make Windows for ARM a real operating system that users can install on an M1 Mac. In fact, Microsoft just announced that they're teaming up with Qualcomm to create a Windows on ARM developer PC that will be available this summer. The purpose of this product will be for developers to create ARM64 apps for Qualcomm's Snapdragon-based PCs. Without developers porting their apps to ARM64, there wouldn't be much point in Windows on Apple Silicon. This seems to me to be an indicator that Microsoft will, or at least could, take the next step to eventually make Windows on ARM available for Apple Macs. So, the final question to answer to your question is that if you're in the market right now for a Mac on which you can run Windows, you would have to buy one of the remaining Intel-based Macs rather than the new hotness. In fact, a friend of mine did that recently for that exact reason.
Whew. So the question is, did that answer Jill's question?
She said yes. She said she'll wait.
You're going to wait. Wait for the M1 based Macs to be able to run Windows?
Yeah, wait until Windows on ARM exists as a real operating system.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, Elliot. I would never say never on games just because they're making their own processor, they're making their own graphics card, so maybe they start doing some pretty cool stuff in graphics. You don't know, right? You don't know. I wouldn't count them out. I would think it's more likely the bigger problem is going to be that not having Windows on ARM available. Oh, you solved my EXIF tool mystery. Oh, good. Thanks, Mike. I have Mike working on projects in the background. Well, since his goofy,
maybe he could work on this
macro won't work.
Macro link problem. Or macro routine.
All right. I am very excited about my next article. You should be very excited about it. Everybody should be excited. Well, everybody who likes Apple Podcasts should be. All right, here we go. Wait, wrong track. The reason you get my podcast delivered into your podcatcher each week is because of a magical little text file, often referred to by terms such as RSS file or feed file or podcast feed. RSS stands for Really Simple Syndication. This file contains the information about the name of the episode, the show notes, and a link to the audio or video file for the latest episodes. In the old days, circa 2005, I hand-coded this file, which was annoying. I'm glad I had to do it by hand because I'm not afraid of the file, and often I can spot what mistakes I may have made if an episode doesn't get delivered properly. Today, there are many ways to create this file. There are WordPress plugins that will create it, and the podcast hosting services like Libsyn and Blueberry and others will both create it for you if you like. Instead, I choose to use an application for the Mac called Feeder from Reinvented Software to create my feed. It's a terrific text editor. It automates adding the album artwork, and I've recently begun to trust it to send my audio files to my server. It's been able to do that for ages, but I was afraid to try it until recently, but of course it works very, very well. This is all background to tell you about an awesome new feature that the developer Steve Harris has recently added to the tool, and you care about this. You may remember that a few weeks ago I explained that Apple has seriously broken the way Apple Podcast app works. Remember I told you that episode 91 of Bart's Let's Talk Photography podcast hadn't shown up for more than a week after he posted? Maybe it was a month. It took forever. Well, Jim wrote to me this week to tell me that show 837 of the NosillaCast had not come into Apple Podcast for him at the expected time. It did show up eventually, but I pride myself on how close to schedule I keep my shows. The good news is that Apple has actually somewhat acknowledged the problem podcasters have been having. In a recent email to podcasters, Apple wrote, and I'm quoting, "Over the last few weeks, some creators have experienced delays in the availability of their content and access to Apple Podcast Connect. We've addressed these disruptions, and we encourage creators experiencing any issues to contact us." So that gives me hope that they will fix another huge problem they created. And that was how they broke links in the show notes. And that's the part that really irritates me. I explained in detail in my previous article how my carefully crafted links are simple text now in the show notes if you use the Apple Podcast app as your player, which approximately 40% of listeners apparently use. The main problem is that if you use human-readable link text, Apple just shows the text and it doesn't let it be a proper link. I knew I didn't have the energy to write up two different styles of show notes, and so I decided at the end of writing that up and thinking it out, I just stuck my head in the sand on this whole issue. But then, Steve Harris sent out an update to Feeder that promised to give me an automated way to give Apple Podcast listeners the links they deserve. I made a little video to show you how delightful the process is. Even if you don't have a podcast and you don't need to make a podcast feed, I think you might enjoy watching this magic in the 1 minute and 46-second video that I created. For those who can't see the video, the process is lovely. Podcasts can have a description and an episode summary. The show notes normally go in the description field, and I've never bothered with the episode summary. I'll confess, I never even noticed it was there because it's hidden by default in Feeder. You have to turn it on in the View menu. Steve explained that the episode summary is what Apple Podcasts will use if it's available. After I go to the description field and enter all my lovely handcrafted links that the Apple Podcast ignores, I can now swap over to the episode summary in Feeder. Then in the menu, I can choose Editor, Episode Summary, Insert Description with Links, and boom, the exact same content that I put in the description field is instantly added to the episode summary, but it's showing all of the ugly https:// blah, 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 so that Apple Podcasts will recognize it. It's a beautiful thing. I tested it like 12 times because it was just so much fun to watch it go. Until Apple fixes this mess they made, Feeder has become a huge boon to all of you who enjoy your podcasts via the Apple Podcast app. I'll tell them you all say thank you.
Wow. So it's a workaround that Steve did, basically, in Feeder.
Yeah. And it's basically like what you would do with Keyboard Maestro. It goes through and recognizes the link and pulls them out and moves them around and reformats them.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Did you play the little video?
I put the link into the video so they can play it if they like.
You should play it.
Is it long?
You can play without sound. You can see it go.
There.
It's pretty
All
fun.
Right, I'll play it see if this works in Discord.
It actually, the show notes for, if you look in Apple Podcasts at Programming by Stealth, that's the first episode where I've done it.
It's a little bit small to see in Discord for me.
Elliot says, "This is great. I wrote a Drupal module to create my podcast feed. Sounds more full-featured." Oh, it's such a good tool. I just love it. It's really the best part about Feeder is read the About Me. Actually, I'll show it to you. I didn't notice this for years. Adam Christensen of the MacCast pointed it out to me. Oh, that's taking forever to come up. There we go. I'm going to bring up the Get Info window here about Feeder and show it to you. Okay, can you guys read that?
Yes.
The thanks says, thanks to Allison Sheridan for the use of her feed in screenshots and for being generally annoying.
That's what you want from a developer.
He is literally the most sarcastic person I've ever met in my life. He is so freaking funny.
More than you.
Oh, no, he takes me up another notch.
Really?
In fact, Steve found, we've got a bunch of home movies that Steve has been transcoding and putting on our Plex. And
you might need to be clear on
Steve, I'm going to explain it. Steve Sheridan has been transcoding our home movies to our Plex server, and he found the meetup that we had in Liverpool 11 years ago, I think we decided it was.
2010, yeah.
11 years ago, and Steve Harris was there, and he caught the moment when Steve had just told me that he drove 4 hours to go to this meetup. And I said, I can't believe you drove 4 hours. I would never drive 4 hours to meet you. And he goes, well, I didn't drive it to meet you. I did it to meet Don.
That's perfect.
I loved it.
And you sent him that segment?
Yeah.
Just to remind him of his sarcasm.
Yeah. Oh, God, he's so funny. He's really responsive, but I've known him forever now. Yes?
Did you get a chapter mark from the prior, for this?
Dumb Question Corner? Yep.
No, for this one. Another reason. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
I did. And I'm not going to do a chapter mark yet, so you're going to have to remind me. I'm going to do my spam now. Muting Steve. It's going to be a long show. All right, here we go. I often have people ask me whether I have an affiliate code for a certain service because these kind of people want to make sure they can help the show. This week, I spent some time cleaning up my text expander snippet that I put in every single episode of the podcast. The most important thing in the show notes are the links to the blog posts, so those will always come first. But in my new and improved snippet, the blog post will be followed by 2 categories of links. The first section is entitled Join the Conversation, and there's where you'll find links to our Slack and Facebook communities. To be honest, talking with you in the community is more important to me than money. But I like money too. That's where the second section comes in. It's entitled Support the Show, Affiliate Links. So now I've got links to Patreon, PayPal, my Parallels Toolbox affiliate, Learn Through Mac Sparky Field Guides, and you can shop for Podfeet shirts. I hope this helps you make it easier for you to find the best way for you to support the show. Again, just look in the show notes and it'll always be there. There we go. All right, now I need a copy link. Now I'm going to do it by hand. What on earth could be causing this? I'm going to just reboot first and hope it just gets better. But hope it wasn't an update to, whoops, nope. Copy. Nope. Don't copy all the show notes. Just copy that URL. Let's do this. This is why you don't do it by hand, because you make mistakes when you do it by hand. All right, now time for security. Yeah, Mac Sparky Field Guides. Have you ever seen those, Alan?
They're people swear popular.
by them. If you're ever going to do a Mac Sparky Field Guide, that is the highest percentage I get on anything I've ever signed up for. I make bank on those. So if you're ever going to use those, definitely remember that. Let's see. There's our Security Bits music. And now let me go find the 2 audio recordings. Pop in one. And I'll do Option T so that can start filling in. So, it's so interesting that you guys can't hear if I leave these as stereo.
I think they hear them in Discord. It's only Mimo for some reason. I'm not sure why that is.
Actually, I want to know the answer to that. So let me screw everything up by muting those 2. I'm going to mute those 2 tracks. Don't let me forget to unmute those 2 tracks. So
right?
tell me if you guys hear two voices. Actually, tell me if you hear any voice right now. You should hear me.
Not in Mimo. I don't hear anything.
Yeah, it certainly feels summery here. We have a holiday weekend next weekend, and the sun is already out here. It's been.
So did you guys hear both?
So I only heard Bart in Mimo. And
okay, so it's the right channel you're not hearing. No, you only hear one. So you're only hearing one channel.
And it's probably that light blue channel we're not hearing.
It's right. So that was the so that's the right channel. Bart is on the left channel. That's very interesting. We should look at my the way I send you the audio sometime and see what it's. I mean, it says right and left channel. Actually, let me undo
Those things don't look aligned, Al.
They aren't yet. I haven't.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Got it.
I want to see whether I see it in the bouncy thing. Hang on. With Bart Bouchot. So welcome to the end of. Whoops. I forgot to unmute those or mute those. Yep, I am sending it. I can see it. Let me do it a little bit.
Do it again.
One more time. Check it in program output. Yeah.
I don't see it here.
I see it moving in program underneath, on program output. I can see it moving.
It's probably the stereo versus like dual mono selection I've got over on my end.
But why would they not be able to hear it in Discord?
Yeah,
if that was the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. No,
You just deleted the Plink.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We're running late. It's 5:57. Okay, now pay attention. I'm going to play the audio, so you got to tell me whether it's right here where it comes in. Well, not if I mute both tracks. Okay, I think I nailed it, though. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Bouchot. So welcome to the end of May, Bart.
Yeah, it certainly feels summery here.
I think I nailed it. All right.
Are you two lined up?
Yeah. Didn't you hear it?
Well, he seemed a little bit delayed in his response, but I couldn't tell there wasn't enough audio to.
There's usually a delay.
Let's see. That's just internet delay.
There. So anyway,
this is exactly in Europe.
Well, not the whole of Europe. It was Belgium and Ireland. Because,
okay.
Yeah. It's. I discovered.
Yeah, there's usually a delay. By the way, I know what my laugh looks like. That's what my laugh looks like.
Let's hear it.
I'm imagining it would have taken us.
Well, you can't hear it very well because he laughs over it, but I was right. All right, and I think that's where we end it. Hour and 22 minutes.
Important to stay patched so you stay secure.
All right. Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. And you know what? You could look in the show notes to hear all this or to see all this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Don't forget to send in your dumb questions like Joel from the Northwoods did, and your Everything is Fiddly recordings like we had last week. Your comments and suggestions, you can do all that by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. Want to become a patron? podfeet.com/Patreon. Want to do a one-time donation? podfeet.com/PayPal. Want to join our community and chat with me and other great NosillaCastaways? You can do that in Slack at podfeet.com/Slack or Facebook at podfeet.com/Facebook. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. There we go. You know what I should have done?
What's that?
Should have mentioned that we will be in the live channel for WWDC.
What's the date on that again?
It's a week from Monday, I think, isn't it?
Oh, well, you can mention it next Sunday then.
Yeah, but that means people will have had to have listened before WWDC the day that it comes out.
I just assume everyone downloads immediately and listens, or listens to it live.
And they really should. All right. All right. There we go. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. All right. Bye, Sandy. Okay. Chapter mark count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're good.
All right. It's a wrap.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for coming. It was a good time.
My pleasure.
And I don't think Rose was here, but I always kiss her goodbye anyway.